Hey guys, so today I just want to cover unit testing a little bit. The good thing about Redux is that you only really have to unit test one thing, and that is the reducers. The reason being that your actions are just objects, so as long as you define them correctly, there's no logic to test because you're just passing an object. And then your selectors is pretty much the same thing. It's just you're getting pieces of state. Although special selectors like the select total may need testing, however, um, well, I don't know. We might test them. We'll see. And since all of your state logic is inside of the store, your components usually rarely need to be tested. And then testing whether or not your component renders is kind of a waste because it's testing whether or not React works, and the reason you use React is because it works. So, yeah. Anyways, let's get on to the thing. So since we use create React app, if you open up your package.json, you'll notice that there's a testing library installed. Particularly, this is Jest, and we also have the types for Jest over here. And you'll also notice that we have a preliminary component test for the landing page. This is not going to work anymore because we basically comment everything out. So I'm just going to delete this comment because we don't need it. But also, I'm going to delete this file. So source add.test test. There it is. Alright, so this file no longer exists. And we're gonna create a testing directory inside our store. So let's make a directory inside our source store and call it test. And this is where all of our Redux tests are gonna live. And I'm gonna make one right now. So I'm gonna call it reducers.spec.ts. I put it in the wrong place, didn't I? Yeah, I did. Alright, well, let's go move it. Move to source, store, reducers.spec.ts. Ah, man. Alright. One level too high. Anyways, now that we're in here, Just is, it's exposed globally, so you can just use all the Jest methods like describe. And this is valid. And I'm just going to call the describe block as reducer test. And make sure we give it a function. And why is this bad? I need to figure out what that error actually means. We'll get there. Well, I do know that we want to get our root reducer. This is the wrong path, isn't it? Yep. So we want to go one level up, and it's called reducers. And we want the root reducer. And what else do we want? I'm also gonna make one little change in our reducers, and that is to export the initial state. So export, and import initial state. So I'm gonna just make a constant here called the test state, and I'm gonna set it equal to initial state because that'll be what we would test against. And just to get things started, let's add a very simple test. So it should return initial state. So this is basically a test to see if Redux actually works. So we're just gonna do expect reducer. I renamed this just for ease of use. And we're gonna pass in undefined as our state. And the action doesn't really matter, so I'm just do type action types dot reset, since that's the least mutative of all the states. And we're just gonna do to equal initial state? Yeah, test state. Alright, now let's run our test, which we could just do by yarn test. And it's running. There we go. So press enter to run, and you'll see that our tests pass. All right, cool. Now let's add some real tests. So let's first test the build change action. So it should set a build to a number, right? Which makes sense. Expect reducer, which takes in the initial state of test state, and we're going to pass in an action of type action types dot build change, and we're going to give it a payload of, I'm going to create a payload so that we could actually set it equal to each other. I'm going to be 100. And that should equal itself. Now let's see what this giant squiggly line is saying. It's not assignable to actions type. And let's go check our actions to see what it is. Okay, so it's checking for a string. So we'll just do number of, well, it's not number, payload as string. No, that's not the right way to do it. We'll just stringify it by using the string constructor. And it says it failed. Let's save again. Failed. And that is because, we're setting the results of the entire payload to itself. And that's not what we want. We want to get just the bill. And now it passes, which makes sense. And also, since we have TypeScript, the little error that we were getting because of the string will negate us having to have some strange tests or some, type tests, where we end up passing in like something that's not a number or a string, like an array, for instance, because it's, as an example, this would just like, the reducer is smart enough to know that it's an invalid action. And next, we'll add a test for a decimal number. And it'll be pretty similar to this. So I'm going to copy and paste and just change the payload to something like 1289. And that passes as well. And then since our action allows strings, we should test what happens when a string is passed in. Should not be able to set string. let's see, const payload equals to, let's go with A. I don't actually know what this is gonna do, so and we change this to not equal. To not, how's it? There's also other test methods you can use, like to be called, in case you want to check if like an action returns another action or something like that. So let's see what else we have. Do we have not equals? Not. To equal dot. Does that work? That does not work. Oh, okay. Okay, so I was reading the Jest documentation, and not is to be used this way, so that would mean I was on the right track. Not to equal payload. And it works. I actually have no idea what this actually does, but let's find out. Bill received not a number. Well, that's a bug that we need to fix. But we can do that later. And then I'm sure you understand, or you get the idea for this. So for the next piece of state that we're gonna do, it should basically have the same behavior as build change. Except we're just gonna set the percentage instead, which means that we need to change this to percentage and this to percentage, as well as this, and this. And our test passed, and now that we have, was that 7 tests? And then this process just keeps going on, and every possible thing that you can think of for each action type should basically be covered. And now it has, because now I created the other remaining tests. So just to quickly go over them, what is it? For increment and decrement, pretty normal. So we pass in the state and then the action, and then make sure that it expects the correct number. Decrement is a little different because we have to spread the state, because our test state starts at 1 and we have to actually subtract from it. So I'm giving it a higher value on split and just making sure it goes down. And then finally, we have a special case here where split cannot go under 1. So we make sure that from the initial state, it can't go lower. And then our reset is pretty simple, which is basically our initial test, but there it is. So, I mean, that's a quick introduction of how to test reducers using Jest in a React app. And I hope you guys enjoyed.